Hi, it is Thursday, June 27th, and I'm here to talk about setting limits and video games, which is one of the hardest topics that we have about video games. It seems like the topic that everybody comes to me going, like, how do we make this easier? And it's possible. That's what I'm here. But first, so I'm Velma, also known as Mama Mabel, and I'm coming to you live from my aunt's house because my internet at home is down. But the bonus is there's kittens and a really great view, which I'm going to show you real quick because this is beautiful here. Like, isn't that beautiful? So, um, yeah. And so we're going to talk about setting limits. And before we get into that and me sharing my screen, I'd love to welcome Mesa, who's here with me live. Thank you, Mesa. And if you could share a little bit, unmute yourself and just share where you're coming from and how old your kids are and like what anything about like how video games are in your house right now that you might want to share.
Hi, Velma, and thank you for welcoming me. I'm Maysa from Muscat, Oman. I have three kids. My eldest is 15. My second child, a daughter, who's 12, and my youngest is 7.5.
Oh,
I personally hate video games. I remember used to play Supersonic and Super Mario, I think. But I wasn't hooked. Unlike my two elder brothers, they were all the time on games. And I remember my mother screaming at them and, off and stop it and enough. You had enough. It's time to go out and play. And then few years forward, I have my own kids and I find myself doing the same thing, um, shouting at them, enough screen time, do something useful, go get a book or do anything else or go out, and the more you shout, the more you scream, the more they're attached. They play now Minecraft, which I know nothing about. They play Fortnite, and these are some of the games I remember for now. But
yeah.
yes, and I find these games so addictive, so unuseful, and I hate them basically. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. I get it and I've been there. So let's see where we go today. Um let's see. I'll start with just a little bit about my background and my family. So I have one 13-year-old son and he loves video games. He especially loves Minecraft. He plays like a handful of others, but that's the one that is his go-to, and that's the one that we started with. It kind of like took us down this road of how the heck do we do video games and have it not be a source of angst and frustration all the time. So he was 8, he started playing Minecraft, and I'm like, what the heck is this? I don't get it. This is ugly. I never played video games. It's I made me dizzy. Like I just couldn't do it. And but I've been doing hand in hand with my child since he was little, like 2 years old. And we had this habit of special time. And so I'm like, well, maybe I can do special time with him around video games because I really didn't want to get replaced by pixels in his life. I wanted to join him and to keep that connection. And if this is what he loved, then I was going to see if I could find something about it to love for myself or at least understand where he was coming from with it. And so I'd spent a couple of years just kind of hanging out with him while he played and watching him play and asking him questions. And eventually I started playing myself. And boy, I was horrible. I was really, 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 really bad at it. And he loved that. He loved that I was so bad at it. It's like the epitome of play listening, except it like I wasn't pretending at all. It was just like, I'm just bad. You're just better and it's great. But I got better at it, and I actually, as I've played more and more of the games, I've come to enjoy them independently, to understand what he loves about them, and to see like parts of the games that are valuable that aren't evident or apparent or obvious from the outside. So what I'm going to share today is some of those things that I found and some ways to go about it that might make the transitions off less full of yelling. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm so grateful to the kitty. Love kitties. There we go. Okay, can you see my screen all right?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Thank you. So just stop now. How many times have I said that? Even I've said that a lot. I don't know about you. But so I will do the qualification. Ending game time peacefully does take time, and it takes practice. And so what we're showing you today, what I'm showing you today are some of the skills and steps that you will get to practice to help it become easier. So, hi, hey, I already talked about me. That's my kid playing a video game and my puppy, because I have a lot of puppies. Well, I have 2 puppies and 7 cats. This isn't one of them, but I don't know, I may take it home. Um, okay, so we'll start with the first thing. So what I like to say here is that what if video games were good? Because there are some good things about video games. And the reason this is important is because, like you said, Mesa, in your description of the family, it's like the more you fight with them about it, the more attached to it they get. And what I also see is that the more we judge it, the more like rebellious they get in wanting it, or the more sneaky they get in wanting it. And it's like, I like this analogy. So let's say you have a hobby. I have a hobby. My hobby is quilting. I love quilting. Really, I do. And I've been quilting since my 20s. And like, say I'm talking to somebody new and they're like, I tell them I quilt, and they're like, ew, why do you quilt? That's like an old lady hobby. It's so it's a completely valid hobby, but they don't get it. They don't appreciate it. And they just judged me for doing it. So I don't feel very close to that person. I don't want to interact with them. And I like distance myself from them, or I hide what I do from them. And what I see is like sometimes when we judge our kids for liking video games, that creates a disconnect. So the first step is maybe opening up to the idea that maybe video games are good. There are challenges to video games. There are many things that are hard about video games. They can become out of balance. And I'm just going to put it out there that like there are some benefits, and I'll list a couple. Like they can be good stress relief. They can help build social connections. Like there's a lot of collaboration and communication that has to be learned to play video games with others. There's a lot of cognitive development. There's a lot of project planning. Let's say you're in Minecraft and you want to build something, you have to think through all the different things that you need to collect to build them and what the best order is. And physical health. There are lots of games that like require you to get up and move around. Not all games do, but like some. And so the opportunity here is to maybe say it could be okay. Let's see, how do I make it go? There we go. So the other thing to know about video games that really helps open up that place for curiosity and connection is thinking about video games as its own culture. It's like you're taking a trip to another country. There's a language, there's a sense of time, there's customs. And as a parent, I'm not fluent in Fortnite, or I'm not fluent in Roblox or whatever game your kid is in. Like, but your kid is fluent in that game. And so thinking about that, we can have our kids be our guide, our tour guide, and learn about the culture and the language and how things work in that world. So when our kid is our tour guide, here are some questions you can ask your gamer. What game are you playing? What type of game is it? Is there an objective? How do you win? Do you play with friends? What are you working on? How do you stop? And depending on the game, there are so many different answers. Like if you're in Minecraft, it's generally a good idea to like not stop in the middle of a dangerous spot, because when you come back on, you could just die right away and lose all your stuff. So it's a good idea to get back to like a bed or a like a place where there aren't zombies and skeletons, or go back to not the nether, or just like close yourself in a box. Like, so thinking about learning about the game and thinking about how to end the game is really important, because and especially for transitions. And so here's another example. Fortnite, you mentioned. Fortnite is a battle royale multiplayer game. And that means that like you often go in and you have a team. And the matches last about 15 minutes. And you're part of a team and you want to be a good teammate. So you're like communicating with your teammates, and like you don't want to abandon them in like mid battle, because that would be like poor sportsmanship. That would be like poor being a poor teammate. So that's why it's important to understand what type of game it is, because then that can say like, okay, Fortnite, there's a like, can we end after this battle? Like, or when you die next, let's sign off. So like those are the kinds of things why that's why it's important to be curious about the game. So all of this adds up to this big idea that gaming is a valid source of play. It is as valid as Legos. It is as valid as baseball. It is as valid as reading a book. It's a valid form of entertainment and play, and it's worthy of respect. And when we come to our kids with that attitude, the interactions completely shift. And what I like to say is that, like, it's not about merely about like turning off the video game. It's about turning on the conversation and collaborating with our kids and finding a good way through. And that collaboration goes easier when we understand that there's a flow, that there's an arc, and to a video game. Um, and abruptly interrupting it with like a you need to stop now can be really disorienting and frustrating and like kind of painful. It's like it's almost like you've been watching your favorite show, and you somebody comes in and goes, "Hey, shut that down. It's bedtime, or we need to do X." And you're like, "There's only 5 more minutes and it's the climax. You want to see what happens." So thinking about it like that can be really useful. Yeah. So game over. What happens when it's game over? Well, understanding why it can be hard to stop when it's game over is useful. So like this is the like being open and curious part. So um I just first I do want to acknowledge that video games intentionally make it hard to stop. That's how they're built. So we learn acknowledging why it's hard to stop can make it easier to build that skill, strengthen that muscle for stopping. So let's say you can be feeling in flow and it can be hard to stop the flow. Like, oh my gosh, like I do this when I'm playing Hollow Knight. I'm like, oh, I'm like really good at my platforming right now. Oh, like I really want to get to that spot. Or I'm like really in a groove with this battle and I like know that like two more tries and I'll be able to beat this boss. And it takes me a while to get into that flow sometimes. And it can be hard to stop because it feels good. And that's like the dopamine receptors getting a lot of good, juicy stuff. So that's like something happening in the brain. Um, Other reasons it can be hard to stop is like they know they need to stop. So they're rushing and they're trying to get all the things done, but then they make mistakes and they want to stop to fix them. Or they don't want to lose their progress. Because if you stop in some games in the middle of a level, you lose all the work that you've done. So it can be important to get to the right, to like a safe spot, a save spot. So not wanting to bail on their friends, like I mentioned for Fortnite. Um, and this is a big one for my kid. It's not as much anymore, but when he was littler, it was a big deal. He's got some executive function ADD stuff. So it was sometimes really hard to remember what he was working on and what he would need to do next. And like so he would like to want to get all of the parts of the project done before he could stop. So then the other thing is like there's an exciting point coming up and they've been working towards it and they know it's coming and they like don't want to turn it off before the end of the show. So those are some of the reasons it can be hard to stop. And that's useful information in connecting with them and having that collaborative conversation. So stopping is a skill. This is what I should have had this slide first, but it's all right. And they need our help learning to do that well. The two parts of the skill of stopping are delayed gratification and regulation. And when we help them make a plan for the end, when we show up and are curious and connect with them before the end and through the ending, and when we help them like plan for when they'll be able to get on next and just like acknowledge how important this is to them, those are things that help build that muscle of delayed gratification and regulation. So here are some of the basic steps for stopping. Setting an intention, connecting, helping them plan and listen. So I gave you all of that information about video game culture and how video games work, because that is what comes in the setting intention part. So I will talk to my kid and I will go, hey, you're gonna, he's like, can I play? And I'm like, well, what do you want to play? What is your project? How long is that going to take? Is that compatible with the amount of time that we have before I'm going to need him to end, or before dinner, or before his like screen time limit runs out? And I help him think through what would be a good project for that 15 minutes or that hour or whatever time he has for the gaming session. So that's the planning part and helping that. That's important. And whichever game you're in shifts. I happen to know a lot about Minecraft, so most of my examples are there. So then connecting before the time is up, check in with your gamer. And you this looks like a couple different things. So this is almost like unannounced special time where occasionally going down and just hanging out and saying, hey, this looks pretty fun. What are you doing? Will help your kid remember that connection, help them remember that like you love them. And then doing that during the gaming session when it's not time to end is a really good like foundation. And then coming to the end, like let's say I need him to end at 6 or 5:30. Um, I will come down at like 5:15 or like 5:10, and I will say, and I'll just hang out and check, like, say, what you up to? How's this going? And then I'll say, hey, now we need to wrap up in like 5 to 10 minutes. And this is where we go into the helping them plan. And the younger they are, the harder this is, and the more help they need. So it looks like, what do you need to do before you can stop? Do you need to get to a bench? Do you need to get to a bed? Do you need to finish this battle? And that's where the knowledge about the gaming culture and the game that they're playing specifically comes in handy. And the more that we do that with them, the more they can do that for themselves later. Then the last thing is listening. Like, so let's say it's time to end. It's like, it's time to end. And usually like they want to make us happy. They want to be with us. And um what I'm not saying is, like, I listen and I stay with them through the ending of the game. I don't just yell down and go, "Hey, it's time for dinner." And like expect him to just drop and come up. Actually, that does happen now where I could like go down and like, "Hey, time for dinner." And he's like, "Okay." And he'll like shut things down and come upstairs without any arguments. It's amazing. But for a long time to get to this point, I would just hang out with him through the ending. And like, it was really, really important for me to feel like I had the space to be there with him. So, not burning dinner. Like, dinner had to be in a safe spot, or somebody else had to be making it. Or I need that's why, like, the having the time buffer of like at like 15 to 30 minutes to help the transition off matters. So then, like, sometimes there does comes like, okay, it's time to end now. If you can't agree, sometimes it's time to end. And sometimes even when you can't agree, it's still hard. So the connecting and the listening to what's hard or what's good after the limit is set can be really helpful. I'm going to pause here. Any comments or questions about this part, Mesa, or anything so far? Because I've been talking a lot.
I'm enjoying listening to you, so everything is clear for now. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
So here are some phrases and questions that I've used to help during that transition period at the end. And these are ways that I'm showing respect for my gamer and his game. So I start with like, hey, may I interrupt? And then I'm like, dinner's ready in 15 minutes. Can we find a good stopping place in the next 5 to 10? Or tell me your plan for leaving the game. That's a really great phrase because it shows respect for them and gives them like empowers them to like take like, oh yeah, I can plan for this. This is something I can do. And if they're stressed about remembering where they are in their bill, like in Minecraft, then it's like, hey, can I help you write down what you're working on so you can remember when you get to play next? Or if I'm playing with them, which we do sometimes, and it's really fun. It's like, oh, hey, I have to stop now. I loved playing. I'm going to do this and then stop. What are you going to do before you stop? So those are some more collaborative questions for bringing into the ending. So if they're still upset when it's over, which sometimes still happens, like, we listen until they run out of words and we empathize with them. I know it's hard and you wanted to do X and that's not going to happen right now. That's something a lot of us hand-in-handers are really familiar with. It's stay listening. And that can be really useful. And that definitely comes in handy when setting limits for anything and video games. Is there something else I want to say here? Yes. One other thing that can make the ending easier is to remind your kid that they are going to get to come back and play more video games. Even if it's not today, it'll be tomorrow or the next day. So you can, it's like, I know it's hard. You wanted to finish your castle right now, and that's not going to happen today, but you'll get to come back tomorrow. And I would love to see what you have planned for it. So reminding them that this is important to them and that they're going to get to come do it again can make those transitions off easier. So now, what experiment do you want to run? What sounds useful? What is one thing that you might try with your family? Any ideas, Mesa? Put you on the spot.
Like you said, stopping is a skill, and helping them stop would also require me to be able to have that, patience, that understanding to help me help them stop. So there's something for me to do and exercise and build up for me to help them stop. So yeah, I need a lot of skills the way they need. And I guess the patience is the number one thing. Like I would usually come and stand next to him and finish, close. You have to stop. You have to close. I have other things to do. I have your siblings to go and, handle and check on them and stuff like that. So the patience is one thing I need to work on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is something that I've done, and this is an invitation for you, is to try some listening time around the impatience. And your dislike of the video games and your fears of the video games. Because sometimes there are things that get in the way of us thinking clearly and open-heartedly about our kids. So that's a useful thing to try. So any questions? Any input or feedback from anything that happened? Or I said, any additional?
I loved how you compared it to your own hobbies. So usually we tend to think of children as, they're half a person, they're half a human, and they are very different than us. But when you think of them as having their own dreams, their own likes and dislikes, it gives you a better understanding of their world. And I liked what you said about it's not about ending the game, it's about starting the conversation and building connection with them during the play. And again, special time during the play and special time outside of gaming hours. So yes, those are some of the takeaways that I'm taking today.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. That's a great spot to start.
And I think one thing I want to add, we usually have this, I think the social media and for me personally, whatever I follow, they make you feel as if screen times are bad. Gaming is bad. You shouldn't let any um, small kid below this certain age watch more than this certain amount of hours. They make you feel as if screens and technology is horrible and bad, while
Yeah.
we ourselves are using them all the time to order grocery, to pay bills and do stuff, and it's getting us closer and connected, and we're now learning and joining courses online and doing all sort of things. But when it comes to kids, suddenly, no, screens are bad, screens are bad. So I wish that, I used to believe in that at the beginning. And then I followed some other people who made me realize that it doesn't have to be all bad. There are good things and there are bad things. And it's about, going moderate and finding your balance with screens. And it is addictive. It is very hard. So that's where it becomes very hard for us parents. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And in the class I do, Game on Mom, that's something I talk about, is that you are the expert on your family. And there are the experts out there who say do this or don't do that, but like you're the one who knows your kids best. So you get to decide what works for you and your family. And if it's this is good or useful, then like enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it because somebody said feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah. So um one cool thing, if you want more support around this, I'm joining with Sonali, who is Forward Together parenting coach, and she's amazing. And we are doing a tech school for parents, painless power downs. It's 3 weeks of live sessions and then 3 Q&As a few days later. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be in July to help like with that summer hump and making life easier, hopefully. So there's a coupon code for 50 off if you want to check it out. And if not, and you've got what you need, that's totally awesome. I'm glad you got what you need. So that's all I got for today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me. And I'm going to stop the share and then I'm going to stop the recording. Don't go away yet, Mason.